Greetings YouTube, the author Mark Simmons here, back for the 5th instalment from my readings of the Psionic Powers Trilogy. In this episode I will be reading a snippet from chapter 9 of my debut novel Of the Night. In the story so far, the protagonist has arrived at a warehouse that he believes the people who first held him hostage are hiding out. And his creator and a few other members of the group have raided the warehouse, basically, and Whitfield is about to enter. Of the Night is available on Amazon through Poe Boy Publishing. As always, I've not rehearsed this, so we'll see how it goes. So this is a snippet from chapter 9, which is called Pursuing. Acrid smoke billowed out of a tear in the top corner of the broken doorway. The torn and indented shutter door gave Whitfield a forewarning to the destruction that he would find inside. He paused at the forced entrance, peered around the corner of the doorway and assessed the interior. The entire cabin of the transit van was crushed against a forklift truck. Smoke was rising out from what was left of the hood, filling the room with its grey tendrils. 2 trails of blood flowed out from under the vehicle's wheels. What little of the carnage he could see turned his stomach and forced him to pull his head back out into the clean evening air. With a deep breath, Whitfield crept under the shutter, past the 2 poor souls flattened underneath the makeshift battering ram, and ventured further into the building. A small interior door hung off its hinges in the far left corner of the loading bay. Keeping low, he moved towards it. A gust of wind sent a cloud of smoke right into his face, and he had no choice but to push on blindly. This next room did nothing to help settle his nerves. As he blinked away the tears, death greeted him. A body lay at his feet on the other side of the door. His throat had an entry wound just below the Adam's apple and an exit wound at the base of his skull. Both leaked across the floor into a pool he now stood in. His footsteps into the crimson liquid produced a fragrance that worked its way up into his nose and triggered a feeling that Whitfield could only describe as yearning. The scent of it all was intoxicating. It took all of his willpower not to bend down and run his fingers through the dark substance. With a shake of his head, he managed to focus on the short corridor ahead of him. At the end, another body was sprawled out motionless on the floor. He approached with caution, lingering just out of the light from the halogen strips way up in the rafters. This new body hadn't been butchered in the same way as the last, but it was laying face down on the ground, and yet its eyes were staring right up at him. The poor man's attacker had managed to turn his head completely around on his shoulders. As he moved away from the corpse, he found himself faced with a new horror that sent his insides down through his feet. Row upon row of surgical tables glistened in the artificial light. Each table rested a naked body. On each table rested a naked body. Every shape, size, colour or gender were laid out before him. All manner of tubes and wires hooked up to monitoring equipment and jacked into their veins. Whitfield looked on briefly in bewilderment before starting to count the numbers. As he reached the mid-20s, he got distracted by movement in the distance. A figure stood at the opposite end of the aisle, watching him across the expanse of the cavernous room. Dressed in a sky blue pair of surgical scrubs, the front of them plastered with a dark substance, and a white surgical mask tied over his mouth and nose. Before Whitfield could even register the man's presence, the surgeon was running towards him, his noiseless approach adding to the terror within him. Only the rustle of his overalls broke the silence. The same empty stare he had seen in Kadir and Lee's eyes bore down upon him. Whitfield couldn't say why, but he knew that he was being charged down by one of his own kind. In a panic, he looked around him for an exit whilst backing away from the oncomer, fear pumping its way through his body. So short one this week, just a little snippet. If I read any more of that, it kind of gives too much away. Little breadcrumbs. It's all little breadcrumbs just to get you to buy my shit, basically. So yeah, that's it. Again, Of the Night, available on Amazon through Poe Boy Publishing. The links to it, UK and US Amazon links, are available in the description, along with my access to my Twitter page, my Facebook author page, my Instagram page. Yeah, they're all there. So I hope you enjoyed it. Please buy it. Please subscribe. Please join me next week, and have a great day.